Welcome to Mindset Matters Book Club YouTube channel. Please subscribe and like to hear new book summaries.
Yes, definitely make sure to do that.
So today we're doing something a little different. We are embarking on a massive, unapologetic deep dive into a book that basically forces a rather uncomfortable confrontation with your own potential.
Oh, it really does. It doesn't let you hide.
No, not at all. The book is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And the mission for our conversation today is to bridge this very specific, very terrifying gap.
The gap between wanting and deciding, right?
Exactly. It is the gap between vaguely wanting to change your life and making the irreversible structural decision to actually change it.
Yeah.
Because, usually when society talks about a person overhauling their reality, there's this, this cinematic expectation attached to it.
Right, like the classic Hollywood turning point.
Yeah. We picture someone having a dramatic breakthrough because their electricity got turned off or like they hit some catastrophic rock bottom and suddenly they wake up completely transformed, ready to sprint up the metaphorical mountain while this swelling orchestral score plays in the background.
Right, but that relies on a dramatic catalyst that forces the protagonist's hand. And if you observe actual human behavior, that is rarely how the desire for change actually manifests.
So how does it usually look?
Well, the landscape of human stagnation is actually remarkably comfortable. It usually looks like sitting on a really soft couch, maybe mindlessly scrolling through a travel magazine or, a social media feed of other people's vacations.
Eating takeout.
Exactly, eating takeout and just harboring this low-level ambient wish that things were different. It is the definition of a lukewarm life. You're functioning, you're surviving.
But you're basically just going through the motions.
Yes, going through the motions, which are punctuated by occasional fleeting flare-ups of awesomeness that just quickly fade back into the routine.
I want to speak directly to the listener right now, because that lukewarm reality is exactly who this book targets. You might be listening to this on your commute or, while washing dishes thinking, well, my life is fine.
And objectively, it probably is fine.
Right. You have a roof over your head, you have food in the fridge, you might have a decent job that pays the bills, and a car that reliably gets you from point A to point B.
Which, compared to a significant portion of the global population, means your day-to-day existence is incredibly secure.
It is. But in the quiet moments, maybe right before you fall asleep or when you're stuck in traffic, there is this nagging sensation, with absolute certainty that you are capable of so much more.
You're exhausted by the low-level minutia.
Totally. You're tired of making just enough money to scrape by or dating a string of people who don't respect you or, and this is a big one, suddenly realizing 3 weeks have vanished into a blur of emails and solitary dollar tacos.
Oh, that is so real.
Right. This deep dive is explicitly for that part of you. We're going to explore the actual mechanics of your mind, examine why you continuously construct barriers to your own success, and ultimately, figure out how to wake up from the illusion of your own limiting beliefs.
And I think what makes Sincero's approach in this book so vital is how she immediately neutralizes the guilt associated with ambition.
That's a huge point.
Because there is this pervasive cultural narrative that wanting more, whether that means, desiring millions of dollars, seeking profound romantic love, or just wanting the absolute freedom and peace of mind to spend your days gardening, somehow makes you greedy or egomaniacal.
Like it's selfish to want a big life.
Exactly. But the book strips that guilt away entirely. It asserts that expanding your life is a natural, necessary evolution. But to facilitate that expansion, we have to start by lifting the hood.
We have to examine the software running in the background of your brain.
Right. We have to look at your subconscious programming.
Yeah. And the book hits us with a core premise that is both fascinating and, honestly, slightly terrifying. It says our day-to-day reality is almost entirely dictated by our subconscious mind.
And she describes the subconscious mind not as some sophisticated supercomputer, but as an unfiltered, highly impressionable little kid.
A sponge.
Yes, a sponge. It acts as a sponge, absorbing beliefs, fears, and rules from our parents, our caretakers, and society at large.
And the kicker is that it does all of this absorbing long before our conscious mind is fully formed. Before the frontal lobe, the part of us that can employ logic and reason, is even online.
If we look at this through the lens of developmental psychology, it aligns perfectly with how human brains mature. I mean, when you arrive on this planet as an infant, you exist purely in the present moment. You operate on instinct and immediate physical needs.
You're basically just eating, sleeping, and crying.
Right. But as you grow through those crucial early years, you are handed a lifetime's worth of established beliefs from the people around you. Your parents, your teachers, your culture, they pass down their worldview.
And they usually do this with the best of intentions, right?
Oh, absolutely. They are trying to protect you and teach you how to survive in their version of reality. But the inherent flaw in this system is that those beliefs often have absolutely nothing to do with objective truth.
They're highly subjective.
Highly subjective, fear-based rules passed down from generation to generation. It's much like a cursed family heirloom that nobody really wants, but everyone is too polite to throw away.
Oh, a cursed family heirloom is the perfect way to describe it. And that leads to one of the most memorable, physically uncomfortable anecdotes in the book.
Oh boy, the mattress story.
Yes, it perfectly illustrates how these inherited rules paralyze us in the real world.
Yeah.
So the author tells a story about going mattress shopping with a salesman she refers to as Freak Show Bob.
Such a great name.
It really paints a picture. So at the time, she was in excruciating physical pain from a bowling accident. And it wasn't even a cool bowling accident.
No, not at all.
She stepped over the foul line, slipped on the heavily oiled part of the lane, and went down hard. So she is walking around with screaming hip and back pain, and she desperately needs to buy a firm mattress to get some relief.
Which is a very basic, practical need.
Right. She goes into a mattress store, finds a firm bed, and lies down to test it. But the salesman, Bob, doesn't just stand respectfully at the foot of the bed holding a clipboard and reciting the coil count.
No, he does the unthinkable. He climbs onto the mattress and physically lies down right next to her.
Like he just gets in the bed.
He lies flat on his back, staring up at the ceiling, chatting away with her as if they are childhood friends looking at clouds at summer camp.
That is deeply weird.
It is a complete and bizarre violation of social norms and personal space.
And she is lying there, completely terrified to even shift her weight to test the pillow top, because she is genuinely worried that if she rolls over, Freak Show Bob is going to start spooning her.
Her internal monologue must have been screaming.
It was. But here is the critical part of the story. She doesn't tell him to get off the bed.
Wow.
She doesn't demand another salesman. She doesn't even sit up. She just lies there, completely frozen in discomfort, nodding along to his chatter.
That is wild.
And eventually, she awkwardly shuffles out of the store without buying the mattress that she desperately needs to cure her physical agony. Now, why on earth would an adult woman do that?
Because of her programming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she explains it. She was raised in a highly waspy environment where avoiding confrontation, maintaining politeness, and never, ever embarrassing another person were the absolute paramount rules of survival.
It's the heirloom again.
Right. Her family's entire confrontation toolbox consisted of freezing up, changing the subject to the weather, going completely blank, or waiting until you were safely in the car to burst into tears.
Which is such a relatable dynamic for so many people, and this scenario forces us to ask a rather profound question about our own behavior. How often do we sacrifice our own fundamental needs? Whether that is a physical need, like a mattress to heal an injury, or an emotional need, like setting a boundary with a toxic partner, simply to comply with a subconscious rule that we didn't even write.
Wow. We prioritize the comfort of a bizarre mattress salesman over our own physical health because a program installed in our brain at age 4 says, make no waves.
Yes. And this collection of inherited restrictive programming is what the book refers to as the big snooze.
The big snooze. I love that term.
In psychological or philosophical terms, you might recognize this as the ego or the Jungian shadow self. But the big snooze is a wonderfully descriptive term because it highlights the illusion.
It implies we're asleep at the wheel.
Exactly. It operates entirely on false beliefs. It constantly seeks outside validation to assure itself that it is safe, and above all else, it is absolutely terrified of leaving its established comfort zone.
And the book sets up a stark contrast between this big snooze and what it calls your true self or your superhero self.
Right, the real you.
Your true self doesn't need external permission. It gets its validation entirely from within. It lives completely in the present moment, and it operates out of love and a sense of limitless potential.
But the harsh reality for most of us is that the big snooze is sitting in the driver's seat, white-knuckling the steering wheel, and this creates a massive internal conflict.
It creates a debilitating psychological friction that we can call the gas and brake phenomenon.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, imagine you are driving a car. Your conscious mind, your analytical adult brain that reads self-help books and sets goals, is pressing down on the gas pedal. It says, I am going to start my own business, or I am going to find a healthy, mutually supportive romantic relationship.
It has clear, logical intentions.
But simultaneously, your subconscious mind is violently slamming on the brakes. Because deep in the architecture of your brain, it holds a core belief that you absorbed from listening to your parents argue about bills when you were 5 years old.
A belief that says money causes struggle and tears families apart.
Exactly. Or perhaps it holds a belief from a childhood abandonment that says intimacy is dangerous and always leads to pain. So you end up revving the engine, burning incredible amounts of fuel, but going absolutely nowhere because the brakes are fully engaged.
It's exhausting.
It really is. I picture it like the operating system on a smartphone.
Okay, tell me more.
You are consciously tapping the screen, desperately trying to open the Financial Success app or the Joy app. You are doing the conscious work. But you have 40 invisible, high-drain apps running in the background.
Oh, draining the battery.
Yes, they're eating up all your battery life and completely blocking the cellular signal. Your conscious mind believes it is in charge simply because it is the part of you that is generating words and thoughts.
But the subconscious mind doesn't bother with words. It just acts as the ultimate gatekeeper.
Right. But if we pause here, this is the exact moment where people throw their hands up in frustration. It begs the question, why is our internal software designed this way? Why would our own minds actively sabotage our happiness and success? It feels malicious.
I get why it feels that way. But the perception of malice is actually the most common misunderstanding about the subconscious.
So it doesn't hate us?
No, your subconscious mind does not want you to fail. It is not a villain plotting your demise. It is simply an evolutionary mechanism designed to keep you safe. You have to view it through its primal function.
Which is survival.
Exactly. To the primitive portions of the brain, familiar equals survival. Even if your familiar reality is objectively miserable, even if you are trapped in a dead-end job, drowning in debt, and intensely lonely, your brain registers one crucial fact.
That you haven't died yet.
Right. You are currently surviving it. The subconscious looks at any form of change, even positive change like acquiring wealth, achieving public recognition, or experiencing deep emotional vulnerability as a vast unknown. And to the primitive survival brain, the unknown is indistinguishable from mortal danger.
So it's an aggressive, hypervigilant overprotectiveness. It's holding you hostage in a mediocre life because it knows exactly how to survive a mediocre life.
Precisely. It is a biological imperative functioning out of context in the modern world. And understanding this resistance perfectly explains a phenomenon that Sincero outlines beautifully in the book, why your life almost always turns to complete chaos right before it dramatically improves.
Or, as she phrases it, why things turn to shit before they turn to shinola.
Yes.
That is such a visceral way to describe the process. Break down the mechanics of that detox phase for us. Why does the universe seemingly punish us the exact moment we try to better ourselves?
Well, it isn't the universe punishing you. It is your own internal system experiencing a violent threat to its homeostasis.
Meaning its balance.
Right. When you finally make a concrete decision to challenge your subconscious programming, when you take that massive leap outside your comfort zone to start the business or end the toxic relationship, the big snooze goes into a state of absolute panic.
Because you're threatening its existence.
From the perspective of your ego, you are essentially murdering the identity it has spent your entire life constructing and defending. So the big snooze fights back with every tool at its disposal.
It creates chaos.
Internal and external chaos. In a desperate bid to force you back into the safety of the familiar. Suddenly, the week you launch your business, your laptop inexplicably dies, your car transmission blows out, you contract a bizarre flu, and your friends suddenly start criticizing your choices.
That always happens.
It's a massive energetic detox. Think of it like a heavy smoker quitting cigarettes. For the first few weeks, they don't feel healthier. They hack up terrible toxins. They get the shakes. They feel incredibly ill.
The body is throwing a monumental temper tantrum because it has been deprived of its familiar baseline.
Upgrading your psychological operating system triggers the exact same withdrawal symptoms.
So when everything hits the fan right after you make a brave decision, you shouldn't interpret that as a sign to stop. It's actually confirmation that your internal alarm bells are ringing because you are finally doing something impactful enough to threaten the old programming.
Exactly. It completely flips the narrative on self-doubt.
But if our internal programming is the faulty software we are trying to rewrite, what is the external network we are attempting to connect to? Because the book makes a very sharp pivot here. moving from psychological mechanics into something much more expansive.
It does. It moves from the internal software to the overarching infrastructure of reality itself. And this requires the reader to maintain a radically open mind as the book introduces the concept of source energy.
Source energy.
Yeah, the author uses several terms interchangeably for this: the universe, God, the vortex, or the mother lode. But the core concept remains the same. It's an invisible, unifying energy field that dictates the flow of reality.
And I appreciate that Sincero doesn't just present this as an unquestionable dogma. She actively acknowledges how eye-rolling this can be for a lot of people.
She really does.
She openly admits that she used to be incredibly hostile toward the G word or anything resembling spirituality.
Yeah.
She viewed the entire self-help manifestation world as unforgivably cheesy.
She describes it as reeking of desperation.
Yeah, full of rah-rah churchiness and populated by the kind of unappealing strangers who try to give you unwanted, lingering hugs.
We all know the type.
She was the ultimate skeptic, fiercely defending her snarky intellectual cynicism. But she eventually hit a wall. She had a brutal realization that her impenetrable armor of irony and snark was the exact mechanism keeping her perpetually broke, frustrated, and stuck in a life she hated.
The evolution of her mindset is a critical part of the book's message. She didn't have an overnight spiritual awakening on a mountaintop. She transitioned from irony to genuine surrender through a process of experimentation.
Like trying on clothes to see what fits.
Exactly. And she uses a brilliant, highly relatable anecdote about line dancing to illustrate how this shift occurs.
Of the Midnight Rodeo story.
Yes.
It takes place in Albuquerque. Sincero and her group of edgy East Coast friends would go to this massive Western bar specifically to be condescending.
They went there to make fun of people.
Right. They went there to snootily make fun of the country music, the cowboy hats, and the crowds of people engaging in synchronized woohoo line dancing. It was an exercise in superiority.
As young, edgy people often do.
True. One night, they decided to go out onto the dance floor, ironically. They were just mocking the heel clicks, doing exaggerated grapevines, waving at each other to emphasize how ridiculous the whole thing was.
But then, the song ended.
And the next one started. And they stayed out there, and they stayed for the next one. And before long, the irony completely evaporated.
They were actually having fun.
They found themselves sneaking off to the Midnight Rodeo every single weekend, not to mock anyone, but to genuinely, unironically line dance until they were exhausted. They surrendered to the joy of it.
That progression perfectly mirrors her journey, and the journey many skeptical readers take into the concepts of source energy and manifestation. She started reading about the universe and energy frequencies with a heavy dose of irony, almost as a joke.
Simply because she'd exhausted all her conventional options and literally had nothing left to lose.
Right. But as she cautiously began to put the principles into practice, she noticed a shift. Not necessarily a sudden influx of cash, but a shift in her baseline mood.
She felt lighter.
Then she started seeing actual, tangible shifts in her external circumstances. Opportunities appeared. And eventually, just like on the dance floor in Albuquerque, she dropped the protective irony and surrendered to it completely. She accepted the premise that we are all composed of and inextricably linked to this limitless source energy.
And this brings us to the mechanics of how that energy operates. The book dives deep into the law of attraction and the fundamental physics of vibration.
Which is where it gets really interesting.
The underlying premise is that absolutely everything in the universe is energy vibrating at a specific frequency. You, as a human being, are constantly emitting a vibrational frequency based on your thoughts, emotions, and deeply held beliefs.
And the things you desire, the ideal career, the financial abundance, the vibrant health, are also vibrating at a frequency.
Conversely, the things you don't want, the debt, the anxiety, the toxic relationships, have their own frequency.
Right. And the rule of this universe is that vibration attracts like vibration. The universe acts as a flawless mirror, matching whatever frequency you are broadcasting.
And the terrifying part is that you cannot trick it. You cannot broadcast deep subconscious feelings of lack and unworthiness and expect the universe to deliver abundance.
No, it doesn't work that way. To ground this somewhat ethereal concept, the author shares a very physical, visceral experience she had in a yoga class, specifically while attempting the pigeon pose.
Oh, pigeon pose.
This story beautifully illustrates the immediate, tangible difference between resisting the present moment and tuning your frequency to it.
Anyone who has done yoga knows the sheer, unadulterated torment of the pigeon pose. You have to fold one leg completely under your body and then lie your entire torso flat on top of it.
It stretches muscles in your hips that you didn't even know existed.
Exactly. So the author is in this pose, and she is in agonizing pain. Her hips are screaming, and in her head, her inner monologue is unleashing a torrent of vitriol and silent profanity directed at the yoga instructor. The instructor is walking around the room, calmly blabbing on about enlightenment and breathing into the pain, and Sincero is lying there terrified that her femur is going to snap in half and she's going to have to be carried out on a stretcher.
She is entirely consumed by resistance.
But then, just for a fraction of a second, out of sheer exhaustion, she decides to actually follow the instructor's advice. She forcefully shuts off the relentless, angry yammering in her brain. She stops fighting the stretch. She breathes directly into the physical sensation of the nath. She completely surrenders to the present moment.
And the physiological response to that psychological shift is instantaneous.
The pain completely vanishes. The agony in her hip evaporates. She melts deeply into the floor, and she is suddenly flooded with this profound rush of bliss and connection to the room around her.
It's incredible how the body responds to the mind.
It is. Now, because she is human, her conscious brain kicks back online a few seconds later. She suddenly remembers, wait, I hate yoga, and I hate this pose.
And what happens?
The moment she engages that thought, the muscular tension returns, and the agony comes rushing back. But that brief, violent flip-flopping between agony and bliss serves as a perfect microcosm for how we stumble through our entire lives.
Oh, absolutely.
We spend the vast majority of our precious energy chasing the anxious squirrels around in our brains, obsessing over past mistakes, or projecting catastrophic fears into the future, all while we are literally sitting in the middle of a full-blown miracle, the present moment, completely oblivious to it.
When we extrapolate that experience to the broader philosophy of the book, Sincero is making a staggeringly profound claim. She is asserting that all the money, all the transformative opportunities, the brilliant ideas, the joy, the ideal partners you are desperately seeking, they don't need to be created from scratch.
They already exist.
They already exist in the present moment. They're hovering right around you. The only reason you aren't experiencing them is because your internal frequency doesn't match theirs.
Like they're on a different channel.
Yes. It is very much like the nature of electricity before the invention of the light bulb. The raw power of electricity was always present on Earth, existing exactly as it does today. But humanity hadn't yet awakened to its potential, nor had we developed the physical mechanisms to manifest that invisible energy into actual practical light.
The energy was waiting for us to catch up. I often think of this as a radio dial. It's a simple but perfect analogy.
Let's hear it.
If you want to listen to 105.9 slow jams, you have to tune your receiver to 105.9. You cannot have your dial rigidly set to 89.9 NPR and then sit in your living room angrily complaining that the mood is completely ruined because you're getting a dry lecture on municipal zoning laws instead of romantic R&B.
You have to tune the hardware to the right frequency.
Exactly. But this is exactly where the skepticism creeps back in for a lot of intelligent readers. It is incredibly easy to say, vibrate higher and tune your frequency when you are sitting cross-legged at an expensive yoga retreat in Bali. But how on earth does a person practically apply that when they are standing in a cramped kitchen microwaving ramen for the third night in a row? Or when they have to wake up and endure a boss who actively undermines them? How do we adopt this philosophy without slipping into a delusional state of toxic positivity where we just plaster a fake smile over genuine hardship?
Well, that is the essential, grounded question that prevents this philosophy from floating away into pure vanity. And the book addresses it with a non-negotiable caveat.
What's his?
Tuning your frequency is not a passive exercise. It is not about buying a pool raft, floating around in your neighbor's backyard, and waiting for the universe to gently drop a bag of gold coins into your lap. Energy must be paired with kinetic, physical action.
Not just casual action.
Right. What Sincero calls hell-bent for glory action. If you cultivate a high, positive frequency but refuse to take any steps in the physical world, you are simply delusional. You are daydreaming.
And on the flip side,
conversely, if you grind yourself into dust, taking massive, exhausting action, but your underlying energetic frequency is rooted in fear, desperation, and a belief that you will fail, you will inevitably sabotage your own efforts. The formula requires both engines to be firing simultaneously.
So you have to believe it and work for it.
You must genuinely believe that the bright, shiny, alternate reality is available to you. You must align your emotional state to match the feeling of having it. And then you must go out into the gritty, real world and take decisive, bold action to build it.
It is the marriage of internal alignment and external hustle. And to maintain that high-frequency energy while you hustle, the book insists that we have to become as present as a pigeon.
Present as a pigeon.
We touched on this with the yoga story. Sincero points out that when we are suffering, it is almost always because we have left the present moment. If you're experiencing depression, your mind is trapped in the past, ruminating on things you cannot change.
And if you are experiencing anxiety, your mind is projecting into the future, creating horror movies about things that haven't happened yet.
Exactly. But if you are truly at peace, you are existing entirely in the present. Animals and young children are our greatest teachers in this regard. A dog doesn't care if you made a mistake at work yesterday. They're just vibrating with joy that you walk through the front door right now.
They're just happy to see you.
Yeah. A 4-year-old finger painting isn't agonizing over whether the kid at the next easel has better technique or whether their painting will have resale value in 1 year. They are entirely consumed by the tactile, joyful process of creating in the now.
This brings us to a critical intersection in the journey. In order to take that hell-bent for glory action, and in order to remain anchored in that present state of high frequency, you have to shed a massive amount of weight.
Emotional weight.
Specifically, you have to stop carrying the burden of the world's opinions. You cannot boldly tune your radio station to a new frequency if you are constantly terrified of what the people in the other cars think of your music.
To achieve that level of immunity to outside judgment, you have to build an unshakable, radical foundation of self-love.
Radical self-love. And the book makes a very blunt argument here. If we truly, deeply loved and respected ourselves, almost every area of our lives would naturally fall into place and function smoothly.
But instead of radical self-love, we default to drowning ourselves in a constant stream of self-doubt and criticism.
It's a bad habit.
So how do we practically rewire this? What are the specific strategies the book provides to stop the internal abuse?
Well, it begins with the tactics that feel highly unnatural and even a bit ridiculous to the cynical mind. The first is the aggressive use of affirmations.
Oh boy, affirmations.
I know, right? Sincero acknowledges that staring in the mirror and telling yourself you are a powerful, wealthy badass feels incredibly awkward at first. Your big snooze will scream that you are lying.
It'll say, who do you think you are?
Exactly. But you have to understand the neuroplasticity behind it. You are intentionally rewriting the neural pathways in your brain. You have to write affirmations on Post-it notes, stick them to your dashboard, and actively force your brain to process new vocabulary.
You have to interrupt the old pattern.
Another crucial strategy is consciously intercepting and replacing negative self-talk. It is about breaking the automatic loop. If you accidentally drop your coffee cup and it shatters on the floor, the default inherited response is usually a thought like, I'm such a clumsy idiot, I ruin everything.
We've all been there.
The practice is to catch that thought midair, pause, and force a replacement thought. You consciously reframe it to, well, that was a mess. What can I learn from this? Maybe I need to slow down.
It's about refusing to let the inner critic have the microphone.
Oh.
And speaking of the inner critic, the book identifies comparison as one of its favorite, most destructive weapons.
Comparison is brutal.
Comparing your journey to someone else's is the absolute fastest way to drain all the joy and momentum out of your life. Sincero uses a magnificent analogy to illustrate the absurdity of comparison. She asks us to imagine the rock band Led Zeppelin.
Okay, Led Zeppelin.
What if Led Zeppelin, at the height of their power, looked over at the legacy of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and started comparing themselves? What if Jimmy Page said, you know, Mozart is historically massive, he is universally respected, and he doesn't even use a drum kit. We should probably fire John Bonham, smash the electric guitars, and hire a section of harpists so we can be more like Mozart.
That is hilarious. It is a laughable concept.
Why? Because Led Zeppelin's entire value, their specific flavor of world-conquering awesomeness, relies entirely on them leaning into their own loud, chaotic uniqueness.
It is a brilliant way to reframe the issue. When you fall into the trap of comparison, you aren't just making yourself feel bad. You are fundamentally rejecting the specific, unique combination of gifts, quirks, and perspectives that you were brought here to share.
You're watering yourself down.
You are trying to mold yourself into a second-rate, watered-down version of someone else, rather than having the courage to be a first-rate, unapologetic version of yourself. The world doesn't need another Mozart. It already had one. It needs whatever specific frequency you are capable of broadcasting.
I always visualize comparison like walking into the most spectacular, lavish, all-you-can-eat buffet imaginable.
Love a good buffet.
Right. You have walked down the line and you have loaded your plate with all of your absolute favorite foods, but instead of sitting down and savoring your meal, you stand there in the middle of the dining room, bitterly glaring at the person at the table next to you, furious because they have a slightly different cut of roast beef from the carving station.
That sounds like torture.
It is a form of temporary insanity. You are letting your own food go cold while you obsess over someone else's plate. Eat your own food, enjoy your own life.
It is a self-imposed starvation. And closely related to comparison is another subtle, insidious habit that the book mandates we eliminate self-deprecating humor.
Oh, this is a tough one for a lot of people.
It is. In many cultures, we are taught that making ourselves the butt of the joke makes us seem humble, approachable, and grounded. We think it disarms people. But Sincero breaks down the cold, hard mechanics of manifestation to show why this is so dangerous.
Because words have power.
Yes, the pipeline of reality creation is linear. Our conscious thoughts become our spoken words. Our repeated words solidify into our core beliefs. Our beliefs dictate our actions, and our daily actions ultimately construct our reality.
Wow.
So if your go-to joke at every social gathering is that you were chronically broke, or that you couldn't get a date if you were the last person on earth, you might get a laugh, but you are quite literally begging the universe to treat you like a loser.
You're coding your subconscious.
You are writing code into your subconscious operating system, instructing it to actively repel money and intimacy.
You are manifesting your own punchline. Now, let's confront the most challenging mandate in this entire section, the absolute necessity of not caring what other people think. The book states, in no uncertain terms, that what other people think about you is quite literally none of your business.
Which is so freeing, but so hard.
Right. Their opinion of you is entirely a reflection of their own internal perception of reality, their own fears, and their own limitations. But I have to ask the practical question here. Isn't outside feedback sometimes incredibly valuable or even necessary?
Absolutely.
How does a listener differentiate between standing firmly in their authentic truth versus just being a stubborn, egotistical jerk who refuses to listen to valid criticism or sound advice?
It is a vital distinction, and Sincero provides a very clear, pragmatic filter for evaluating outside input. When someone offers you criticism or advice, you don't automatically reject it, but you put it through a rigorous test.
Let's test.
You ask yourself 2 questions. Is this feedback genuinely constructive? And can I use this information to better myself and improve my impact on the world?
Give me an example.
Okay, for example, if 3 different friends over the course of 5 years have pulled you aside to say that you have a severe temper and you blow up at minor inconveniences, and you quietly look inward and realize that your anger is damaging your relationships, then that is valid feedback. You should absolutely apply it and commit to making a change.
That makes sense.
But if you announce that you are leaving your corporate job to open a bakery, and a friend tells you that you are making a catastrophic mistake and will end up bankrupt, you have to examine the source. Very often, that feedback is just the friend projecting their own deep-seated terror of financial instability and failure onto you.
Your bravery threatens their big snooze.
In that case, you must let the feedback wash right over you. Sincero offers an ultimate litmus test for your actions. Are you actively screwing anyone else over?
It's a good benchmark.
If you are lying, stealing, or causing intentional harm, you need to course correct. However, she explicitly notes that disappointing your parents' expectations or outraging your friends because you no longer fit into their comfortable box does not constitute screwing them over.
That distinction is incredibly liberating. Screwing someone over means taking their investment money and purposefully blowing it at a casino. Your mother being perpetually sad that you decided to be a graphic designer instead of a certified public accountant is not screwing her over.
Not at all.
You are not responsible for managing her emotional reaction to your autonomy, which leads to the terrifying task of actually figuring out what your autonomous true self wants to do. Sincero introduces an exercise for finding your calling that is just incredibly fun and insightful.
Oh, the alien exercise?
It's the alien exercise. You are asked to imagine that you are an alien floating peacefully in space, and you suddenly swoop down to Earth and drop directly into your current physical body.
It is a masterful exercise in cognitive reframing. It completely bypasses the ego.
Exactly. Because as the alien, you arrive with 0 emotional baggage. You don't know that your high school guidance counselor told you that you weren't good at math. You don't have the trauma of that bad breakup from 3 years ago. You just look around the room with fresh, objective eyes.
Like a clean slate.
The alien says, okay, let's assess the inventory. What is this human body naturally capable of? What resources are sitting right here on this desk? Who are the 500 people in this smartphone's contacts? What immediate geographical or financial opportunities are available?
The alien immediately recognizes all the profound advantages, talents, and safety nets that the human has spent years ignoring, taking for granted, or dismissing out of fear.
And the goal is to adopt that alien perspective, recognize your inherent power, and then pursue your desires with the absolute unbothered confidence of what the book calls the loincloth man.
The story of the loincloth man perfectly encapsulates the ultimate goal of internal validation.
I have to set the scene for the listener because it is such a striking visual. Sincero is driving her car through a remote, desolate canyon miles away from civilization. And as she drives, she sees a man casually walking down the side of the dirt road.
Just minding his own business.
This man is wearing absolutely nothing but a tiny, threadbare loincloth. And in his hand, he is fearlessly and casually swinging a dead squirrel by the tail, almost like a purse.
It's just such a crazy image.
And the most remarkable thing about him is his posture. He is completely, utterly unbothered. He isn't hunched over, worrying about what society thinks he should be doing with his life. He isn't anxiously wondering what this woman from Los Angeles driving by in her car thinks of his hygiene or his choice of attire.
He's just free.
He is just existing, entirely present, completely happy, and fiercely true to whatever bizarre reality he has chosen for himself.
While it is a comical and extreme example, the underlying principle is exactly what we are striving for. The loincloth man is immune to the big snooze. He is entirely validated from within.
Which is the dream.
Now, to achieve even a fraction of that internal freedom, there's one more piece of emotional baggage that must be jettisoned: resentment. The book tackles the concept of forgiveness, but it strips away the usual moralizing and religious undertones.
How so?
It presents forgiveness not as a saintly obligation to absolve the person who wronged you, but as a ruthlessly selfish act of energetic preservation. Forgiveness is not about the other person at all. It is entirely about freeing yourself. Sincero quotes the comedian Lily Tomlin, who said, "Forgiveness means giving up all hope for a better past."
That quote is a gut punch. Giving up all hope for a better past. So much of our anger is rooted in a subconscious, irrational demand that the past should have happened differently.
But you cannot change it.
Clinging to the anger and the resentment is like willfully drinking a vial of poison every morning and then waiting around expecting the person who hurt you to die.
That's a powerful way to put it.
They are moving on with their lives, and you are the only one suffering the toxic effects. You have to actively take them out of your energetic equation entirely so you can stop hemorrhaging your own power and start building a better reality.
And this brings us to a crucial juncture. Let's assume you've done this foundational work. You are learning to love yourself, you are filtering out the opinions of the peanut gallery, and you have released your death grip on past grievances.
The path forward seems clear.
But this is exactly when you will slam into your own internal, highly sophisticated defense mechanisms. We have to confront the specific, deeply ingrained stories, excuses, and illusions that are currently acting as invisible roadblocks.
We have to obliterate the obstacles. And the first major obstacle is our own narrative. Sincero opens this exploration with a quote from Albert Einstein. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one.
And she pairs it with a thought from James Allen. Environment is but his looking glass.
The profound takeaway is that our reality is not an objective, immutable fact. It is created and sustained by what we persistently choose to focus on. Yet we are incredibly stubbornly committed to our low-frequency stories.
We really are.
We walk around proclaiming, I am just naturally bad at sales, or I have terrible luck with money, or I live in a city where there are simply no good people to date. And if anyone challenges these narratives, we will aggressively fight to the death to defend our own limitations. We will produce evidence to prove why our life has to suck. Why do we do this?
We defend these limiting stories because they are secretly paying us off. This is one of the most profound psychological insights in the entire book. You do not hold on to a restrictive belief for decades unless you are extracting some kind of value from it.
Like a hidden benefit.
Exactly. The book calls these false rewards. If your persistent story is there are simply no good men out there, they are all terrible, the false reward you are quietly reaping is the absolute guarantee of safety.
Because you never had to try.
Right. By maintaining the belief that the dating tool is poisoned, you absolve yourself of the responsibility to try. You never have to put yourself out there, you never have to risk the terror of being emotionally vulnerable, and you completely eliminate the possibility of having your heart broken again.
You get to stay in your comfort zone while simultaneously enjoying the righteous indignation of being a victim of circumstance.
It is the ultimate self-sabotaging trade-off.
It makes me think of someone wearing a massive, heavy, suffocating winter parka in the middle of a scorching July heat wave, simply because 10 years ago, someone told them they looked really good in that coat.
It's familiar.
Sure, the weight of the coat feels familiar, and maybe it provides a false sense of emotional security, but it is slowly giving you heat stroke. It is actively harming you. To rewrite your reality, you have to brutally interrogate your own complaints.
You have to identify the false reward, acknowledge the scared, childlike part of your brain that is just seeking safety, thank it for trying to protect you, and then deliberately take the coat off. You have to consciously author a new, empowered story.
Absolutely. And once we strip away the false stories, we often uncover the next layer of defense procrastination, which is almost always disguised as perfectionism.
Oh, perfectionism is just procrastination in a fancy suit.
It really is. We tell ourselves that we are just being thorough. We spend all of our available energy getting ready to do the thing, researching, buying new equipment, waiting for the perfect timing, instead of ever actually doing the thing.
We convince ourselves that we lack the necessary experience or credentials, when in reality, we simply lack the courage to push through the intense, agonizing discomfort of being a beginner. We are terrified of being bad at something.
Sincero dismantles this excuse with a fantastic story from her own life about the Polish Beer Garden Folk Arts Festival.
That's a mouthful.
Right. She was fresh out of college, living in New York City, and she had zero professional experience producing events. But she saw a job listing for a production coordinator for this massive multi-day ethnic folk arts festival.
And she applied.
She didn't want the job because she had a passion for Polish folk art. She wanted it because the production company operated out of a cool, funky loft. They let employees bring their dogs to work. And the festival itself involved men in traditional skirts, relentless polka music, and unlimited free sausage and beer. It sounded fun.
So she just went for it.
So she applied. And through sheer charisma, she got the job. And she succeeded wildly at running this massive logistical nightmare. Not because she had a master's degree in event management, but because she was naturally bossy as an older sibling. She enjoyed throwing parties, and above all, because necessity is the ultimate teacher.
Her passion for the environment and the absolute necessity to not get fired trumped her complete lack of formal experience. She just jumped into the deep end and figured it out as she went.
It is a testament to the power of action over preparation. Now, if procrastination is an internal defense, the book also highlights a fascinating external defense mechanism, a concept it calls millions of mirrors.
This is the psychological principle that the people who irritate us the most, the people who trigger our deepest, most visceral anger, are actually functioning as mirrors, reflecting our own hidden traits or suppressed desires back at us.
Like Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
The people we interact with provide a flawless reflection of who we are and, more importantly, how much we truly love and accept ourselves.
This concept of the mirror is a very tough pill to swallow. If I'm interacting with someone and they are acting absolutely obnoxious or they're driving me crazy, my immediate instinct is to say, no, this isn't a reflection of me. This person is just an objective jerk.
Of course.
Break down the psychology of this for us. How is their bad behavior my mirror?
Well, it is rooted in the psychoanalytic concept of projection. The ego defends itself by taking traits it deems unacceptable in itself and projecting them onto others. Let's explore the example Sincero uses in the book. Suppose you have a friend who is chronically, unapologetically late to everything.
Okay, that would drive me crazy.
And this doesn't just annoy you, it sends you into a blinding rage. It pushes every single button you have. The book challenges you to own your ugly. You have to pause the anger and ask yourself a difficult question. In what ways am I also acting inconsiderate or unreliable in my own life? Right. If you look closely, you might find that while you are always on time, you are incredibly unreliable when it comes to keeping promises to yourself. But if a direct one-to-one reflection doesn't fit, you have to flip the mirror to look at the opposite extreme.
What does that look like?
Ask yourself, in what ways am I entirely too rigid, controlling, or obsessed with the rules? Very often, our extreme irritation is a defense mechanism protecting our own extreme behavior.
Like being overly strict.
Yes. If you are relentlessly rigid about schedules because it gives you a false reward of feeling in control of a chaotic world, then a person who moves fluidly through time and ignores the clock is a walking, breathing threat to your entire worldview.
The intense irritation you feel isn't just about their tardiness. It is the mirror showing you the exact area where your grip on reality is entirely too tight and where you need to evolve and loosen up.
That is incredibly deep. It is not just a reflection of identical behavior. It is a reflection of an energetic imbalance. We are getting a false reward from our rigid control, and the late person is disrupting our illusion of safety.
Another massive, persistent illusion the book tackles head-on is our relationship with time. This is the source of so much overwhelming modern stress. We constantly walk around sighing, "I'm so busy, I just don't have the time."
Being busy has essentially replaced "fine, thanks" as the standard societal greeting.
The book offers a tactical solution. We have to aggressively wrangle time into submission by chunking our tasks into a strict now list, which are things that must happen today, and a wait list. But I want to inject some real-world skepticism here.
Bring it on.
The book makes the bold claim that time is just an illusion. How can that possibly be true for the listener who has a very real, very hard deadline for a major project at work? Their boss isn't going to care if they say time is an illusion when the quarterly report is missing. The clock is real.
This is a common point of resistance. The book is not denying the physical existence of the clock or the reality of a deadline. It is challenging the psychology of how we experience time, which is heavily influenced by a concept known as Parkinson's law.
What is Parkinson's law?
Parkinson's law dictates that work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. Time expands or contracts based entirely on your focus, your energetic state, and the boundaries you set.
Okay.
If you give yourself 6 months to write a manuscript, it will take exactly 6 months. And you won't be writing the whole time. You will fill those 6 months with anxiety, endless preparation, procrastination, and self-doubt.
But if you have less time...
However, if you are suddenly given a hard deadline of 1 week to write the exact same manuscript, you will miraculously get it done in a week. The necessity forces intense focus and completely eliminates the luxury of procrastination.
So it's about shifting your mindset.
It is about shifting your relationship from being a victim to being a creator. When you constantly vocalize the mantra, "I don't have enough time," you are actively programming your subconscious for a state of lack and perpetual overwhelm. You are deciding to be a victim of your schedule rather than the deliberate architect of it.
And the ultimate architect of our misery, the force that underpins all of these obstacles, the stories, the procrastination, the anxiety over time, is fear. Sincero illustrates the anatomy of fear with a story about a trip to the Jemez Mountains in New Mexico.
Oh, the cave story.
She was invited by friends to go explore a wild, unmapped cave. Now, she absolutely hates caves. She is claustrophobic. She only agreed to go on the trip because she wanted the scenic drive and the promise of a really good green child cheeseburger afterward.
I'd go for the cheeseburger, too.
Right. So they get to the cave, and it is a nightmare. They are crawling on all fours through pitch-black, suffocatingly tight tunnels of earth. It is terrifying. But in the midst of this panic, she comes to a profound realization about the nature of fear itself.
What did she realize?
She realizes that fear is almost entirely an anticipation of the future. It is rarely about what is actually happening in the exact present moment.
That's a great point.
If you break down a psychological fear, let's say the fear of writing a novel and having it be universally rejected, you realize you aren't actually afraid of typing words on a keyboard. You are afraid of an imagined future emotion. You are afraid of feeling stupid, exposed, and ashamed.
But Sincero flips the script. She points out that if you let that fear win and you never write the book, you are guaranteeing that you will live an unfulfilled life of mediocrity.
Which is worse.
Exactly. And that quiet, lifelong regret is a much deeper, much more toxic kind of shame than a temporary critical rejection. So you are ultimately forced to choose which flavor of shame you would rather risk.
You neutralize fear by tethering your mind violently to the present moment and maintaining your connection to source energy. You have to actively cut off the stream of mental garbage that feeds the fear. You stop endlessly scrolling through catastrophic news stories. You walk away from toxic office gossip. And you absolutely refuse to entertain upsetting thoughts while lying in bed at 3 a.m.
Because in the middle of the night, the exhausted brain acts as a magnifying glass for anxiety.
Okay, let's look at the map of where we are. We have identified the BS of our subconscious programming. We have learned how to raise our frequency and tune into the universe. We have committed to radical self-love and ditching the opinions of the peanut gallery.
We've covered a lot of ground.
And we've analyzed how to obliterate the obstacles of false stories, mirrors, and fear. The internal path has been cleared. But as we established earlier, nothing in this universe manifests in a vacuum. You cannot just meditate your way to a new reality. You have to execute.
Which brings us to the climax of the process, the final hurdle, the almighty decision, wealth consciousness, and surrender.
This is the exact point where theory must translate into reality. All the profound mindset work, the journaling, and the affirmations are ultimately useless without a definitive, irreversible commitment. You have to force the universe's hand.
The book illustrates the sheer power of an uncompromising decision with a historical story about Henry Ford. Ford envisioned a V8 engine cast in a single, solid block of iron. He demanded that his engineers build it.
And they thought he was crazy.
Now, given the engineering capabilities of the early 20th century, his team of highly educated experts analyzed the request and concluded that it was physically and mechanically impossible. They brought him all the data proving it couldn't be done.
And what was Ford's response?
He didn't compromise. He didn't scale back his vision. He simply said, produce it anyway. He refused to accept reality as it was presented to him.
He just wouldn't take no for an answer.
And his engineers went back to the drawing board, toiled away for months, and eventually, because Ford had made an immovable decision that the engine had to exist, they figured out how to cast it. The impossible bent to the will of a true decision.
Sincero points out the fascinating etymology of the word decide to drive this home. It originates from the Latin word decider, which literally translates to cut off. When you make a genuine, authentic decision to change your life, you are quite literally cutting off all other options. You are eliminating the very possibility of retreating to your old life. You aren't giving it a try, you aren't waffling out of fear, and you certainly aren't meticulously maintaining a comfortable backup plan that gives you permission to fail safely.
It's the classic, ruthless military strategy. When you land your troops on a hostile new island, the very first order you give is to burn your own boats. There is no retreat. You either conquer the island or you perish.
You intentionally cut off your own escape route to force a level of performance that you didn't know you were capable of.
But when we look at how people operate, the one specific area where they absolutely refuse to burn their boats, the area where they cling to their limiting beliefs the hardest is around money.
Oh, money is a huge one.
The book dedicates an entire crucial chapter to this, boldly titled, Money, Your New Best Friend. Sincero insists that wanting immense wealth is not inherently evil, it is not greedy, and it does not make you unspiritual.
This is a massive, incredibly common stumbling block. It is especially prevalent among people who lean into spirituality, the arts, or caregiving professions.
Because of the cultural narratives?
Right. Our culture has instilled a deep subconscious belief that money is inherently dirty, that the wealthy are morally corrupt, and that desiring financial abundance makes you a bad, superficial person.
Sincero argues the exact opposite. Money is completely neutral. It is simply a highly concentrated form of energy. It acts as an amplifier. If you want to live an expansive, awesome life, if you want to have the freedom to travel, to build orphanages, to fund political movements, or just to take care of your aging parents without enduring panic attacks, you require resources.
By purposely keeping yourself broke out of some misplaced, romanticized sense of nobility, you are severely limiting your impact.
You're actively depriving the world of the gifts and the help you could be providing if you had the resources to scale your efforts.
And to begin attracting that necessary wealth, the book mandates that you must upgrade your environment and act as if. The logic is that you cannot attract high-frequency abundance if you are constantly surrounding yourself with low-frequency evidence of poverty.
You can't expect wealth if you're wallowing in lack.
If you want to manifest a wealthy, expansive life, you cannot come home every single day to a depressing, cluttered apartment and listen to the Sanford and Son theme song playing in your head.
That's a funny way to put it.
You don't necessarily have to spend money you don't have, but you have to scrub the apartment clean, paint the walls, throw out the chipped coffee mugs, and act as if the wealth you desire is already on its way.
More importantly, Sincero says you have to raise your absolute bottom line. You have to make a decision. I will never again allow my bank account to drop below $2,000. You treat that number as absolute, uncompromising zero.
If you hit $2,000, it triggers the same biological urgency as having exactly $0, forcing you to generate income rather than passively sliding into debt.
It creates a self-imposed necessity. But as we reach the pinnacle of this process, Sincero navigates a very delicate, complex tension. It is the balance between taking that massive, unrelenting action, what she calls doing versus spewing, and the spiritual act of surrender.
Taking action is the difference between saying, I tried my best, and saying, I kicked butt.
Because the reality is, every time you successfully break through to a new, higher level of existence, you will inevitably face a completely new set of challenges and fears. The phrase she uses is, new level, new devil. The hustle never permanently stops.
But wait, this is where I have to ask the hard question, because this feels like a glaring contradiction to the logical mind. How does the listener reconcile these two opposing forces?
Which ones?
On one hand, the book is demanding hell-bent for glory action, telling us to burn the boats, hustle relentlessly, and force our will upon the world like Henry Ford. But on the other hand, it is preaching the spiritual concept of free-falling backwards into the unknown and surrendering to the universe. If I am hustling and burning boats, I am actively trying to control the outcome. If I am surrendering, I am completely letting go. How can you possibly execute both simultaneously without losing your mind?
That paradox is the ultimate synthesis of the book's entire formula. The key lies in dividing the labor between you and the universe. You are entirely in control of the what, and you are entirely in control of the action. But you must absolutely surrender the how.
Walk us through exactly what that looks like in practice.
It means you get crystal, unapologetically clear on what you want. You define the goal, you visualize it, you align your emotional frequency with the reality of having it, and then you take every single humanly possible physical action to magnetize it to you.
You do the work.
You make the terrifying phone calls, you stay up until 2 a.m. building the website, you march into your boss's office and demand the raise, you go on the awkward blind dates, you put immense kinetic energy into the system. But, and this is the crucial part, you surrender your rigid attachment to the specific route the universe will take to deliver the result. If you decree, I must get this specific promotion at this specific company in order to make the money I need, you are trying to control the how.
And by doing so, you might be blinding yourself to a completely different, infinitely better opportunity that the universe is trying to hand you. Perhaps starting your own consulting firm or meeting a new business partner.
Exactly. You do the gritty work, but you detach from the exact mechanism of delivery.
Sincero tells a story about a client that perfectly encapsulates this crazy balance. The Tuscan villa story. She had a client who took a trip to Italy, toured a magnificent Tuscan villa, and completely head over heels fell in love with it. She decided she had to own it.
But she didn't have the money.
The massive problem was that this client was a bartender and a part-time poet. She literally had tumbleweeds blowing through her bank account. She had zero capital. But she approached the owners of the villa and confidently told them to take the property off the market because she was going to buy it.
That's bold.
She secured the intention. That was her deciding the what. She took the audacious action of verbally committing and putting a reputation on the line. And then she completely surrendered the how.
Because she had no logical idea where the money was coming from.
None. She had no logical idea where hundreds of thousands of dollars were going to come from, but she maintained her high frequency, she stayed open to opportunities, and she trusted the process.
And what happened?
Through a bizarre, unpredictable series of synchronicities and unexpected networking connections that she never could have orchestrated herself, the universe provided the route, and she secured the funding to buy the villa.
It perfectly demonstrates the equation. Doubt is a form of energetic resistance. Faith is the ultimate surrender. Trying to micromanage the universe's timeline is resistance. Allowing the process to unfold while you work is surrender.
It's a dance.
You define the target, you do the relentless physical work, you raise your internal frequency, and then you close your eyes and trust that the overarching architecture of reality will catch you.
Let's take a breath and look at the sheer scope of the journey we have been on today. We have deconstructed the mechanics of human reality. We've established that the life you are living right now is not a fixed, immutable sentence. It is highly malleable.
You just have to wake up.
By consciously choosing to wake up from the big snooze, by recognizing that your adult mind has been hijacked by the outdated, fear-based programming of a child, You can finally seize the steering wheel. You can intentionally raise your energetic frequency.
You can tune your internal radio dial to the mother lode, existing entirely in the present moment like a pigeon in a yoga studio.
You can drown your inner critic in radical self-love, drop the heavy, suffocating winter coat of your sad stories, completely detached from the judgment of the peanut gallery, and finally summon the courage to make that almighty boat-burning decision.
And as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with one final provocative concept process. We have spent this entire conversation establishing that your conscious analytical mind processes only a tiny, underdeveloped fraction of the available data in the universe.
A fraction of a fraction.
We have explored the idea that your physical environment is merely a persistent illusion, a mirror reflecting your own inner beliefs and limitations back at you. If we accept this premise, if the universe truly is a limitless, swirling buffet of resources and opportunities just waiting for your internal frequency to match them, then you have to ask yourself a staggering question.
What's the question?
What impossible, life-altering reality is standing right in front of you, right now, completely invisible to your eyes, simply because you haven't yet given yourself the permission to decide that you are worthy of seeing it?
Wow, that is a heavy, magnificent thought to end on. Because the truth is, your life is happening in this exact second. It is not a dress rehearsal. The curtain is up. Do not snooze and lose. Thank you so much for exploring the mechanics of your own mind with us today. Now, step away from the lukewarm life, upgrade your frequency, and go kick some ass.